Hi everyone, and welcome back to Hope from Home, the show where we bring you conversations of hope from our home to yours. Today, Matteo Cioffi speaks with Michael Kelly, editor of The Irish Catholic, about the situation in Ireland right now. Luisa Florentine learns from artist Amber Noor about her beautiful and unique painting of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And Jermaine Bagnall connects with Jesuit Father Robert Ballister about technology and all things digital. And of course, they'll all tell us where they're finding hope from our home to yours.
Hello, Michael. Hello, it's a big pleasure to have you here, Hope from Home. First of all, I would like to ask you, how are you and how is the situation in Dublin and in Ireland?
Hey, Matteo, it's great to be with you and great to share the reflections in this very, very strange time. As the editor of a Catholic newspaper that's mostly distributed to the churches, it's a strange time for us because many of the churches have been closed, but also at a spiritual level as a Catholic as well, because now it's 2 months since we've been able to attend public Mass in Dublin, and we expect that it will be 2.5 more months before the churches will be fully open. So I can say that a lot of the priests, a lot of the parishes are doing really heroic work to try to reach out to people, to have online masses, to have live streaming, to be able to call the people who are lonely, the people who are isolated. But, you know, it's so instinctive for us as Catholics to gather together, to come together for worship. I think we're really missing that. We have now a roadmap whereby if everything is going well, then the churches will open again in 2.5 months. But that's a very, very long time for people. And we're really hoping that the spread of the virus will be contained so much in Ireland that we will actually be able to open our churches for public worship sooner than that. One of the things that is very positive here in Dublin is many of the churches are still open for private prayer, and that means so much to people. People can go socially distanced, they can go there, they can be before the Blessed Sacrament, they can pray in the church where they have celebrated so many memories as part of their life. So that's an important thing, and we hope that it will be a gradual return to something like normal.
Michael, I want to ask you, at the Irish Catholic, how are you covering this emergency? If you're doing something special, something different than usual, to cover this particular situation.
One practical issue is now we were an office of 16 people. Now we are 16 offices with one person in each office. Everyone is working from home. So that creates some communications difficulties. As you know, Matteo, journalism is the kind of thing that is done in collaboration with other people. So we miss being in the newsroom. We miss the communication. But I can say everyone's been very generous of spirit, generous with their time, and the technical difficulties that have been there, the difficulties by not being in the same space together, they have been overcome. What have we been doing in terms of what is different about this? One of the missions of the Irish Catholic is to cover the life of the church and the impact that the church makes in the lives of everyday people. So as that has changed, our mission has changed in this coronavirus as well. So we're hearing a lot more from hospital chaplains. We're hearing a lot more from priests and religious who are coming up with creative and innovative ways to reach out. One challenge that we have as well, many of our priests are over the age of 70, and so because they're over the age of 70, they themselves are cocooning, they themselves are staying at home. So we're trying to reach out to them as well to ensure that they can still get the newspaper. I can say a lot that we've done as well has moved online, because if people cannot get the physical copy of the paper, they now get the digital copy of the paper. And to add to that, we've added videos, we've added audio, because we want people, when this is over, to be able to have experienced this as a spiritual time as well, as an opportunity for a time of growth. But for us, it meant moving very, very quickly to a very different approach, to in some ways an isolated approach. But I think that it has been good, and the feedback that we've been getting from people has been mostly good as well.
Recently you wrote, health and safety cannot become the church's sole pastoral priority. No? I would like to go a little bit deeper in this concept in what you wrote.
My concern, I guess, is that all things in life, there is a balance of risks, and we must be very, very careful about the importance of human health. But in deciding in a phased reopening of the churches, in deciding in a phased return to public liturgies, we must all consider what is an appropriate risk. For example, is driving a car to church a risk? For sure, it's a risk because, there can be a car accident, but it's a balanced risk, so one can take that risk in order to go to Mass. So likewise, when it comes to reopening of the churches, can we eliminate all possible risk? Can we say with 100% guarantee that going to Mass will be absolutely safe and it will be impossible to contract the virus going to Mass? No. But what we can do is we can take all of the appropriate precautions in terms of social distancing, in terms of hygiene. And those are the things that we must do. We must reassure our people that they can be as safe as possible in coming to church. We must say to older people, if you have an underlying condition, if you feel that it's not safe for you, then you must not come, and you must know that your Sunday obligation, you are still absolved from that. But we must be able to say, as other aspects of society are starting to open, as restaurants are starting to open, as bars are starting to open, as public libraries are starting to open, that the churches too can open if we can guarantee that we can keep the appropriate distancing and keep the appropriate hygiene matters. So that's really what I mean when I say that the health and safety must not become our only dominant priority, because if health and safety was the only thing we concentrated on, then we would never open again, because always there will be an element of risk in life.
Sure. My last question, Michael, is what's your hope for the next weeks? Because, the show is called Hope from Home. I want to ask you your personal hope.
I think that one thing that this crisis has shown up for me is that life, that the economy, that society can be very, very fragile. One thing, everything is going normal and we are celebrating in restaurants, because remember this pandemic first hit Ireland around the time of St. Patrick's Day, when it's our national holiday, when maybe you have like 1 million people on the streets of Dublin, but on St. Patrick's Day this year there was no one on the streets of Dublin. The streets were absolutely isolated. So I hope that in this crisis we will gain a greater appreciation of the small things in life, a greater appreciation of the things that we take for granted, and so have more gratitude for life as well, and understand that we are a society more than an economy, and actually understand, as well as we are appreciating in the social distancing, that our lives are not just about ourselves. Our lives, even if we're healthy, we must concentrate and we must think about those who are maybe not as healthy as we are, so that we can put others in front of ourselves. So I think if we learn one thing from this crisis, it is to think a little bit less about ourselves and to think a little bit more about others, and also to think about the importance of spirituality in our lives more often, because in this time we can be distressed, we can feel that God is absent, but we know in our Christian tradition that very often it is when God seems absent that he is closest. So that would be my hope and my prayer for people, and not only in Ireland, around the world, because we see the solidarity of the world, because this is a crisis we're experiencing together. Normally we're looking at one country in crisis and thinking, oh my goodness, thank God that is not us. Now the world is together. We've been catapulted into this crisis as one.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Michael. Thanks for joining us here at Hope from Rome. And, it was a big pleasure to have you. And thank you.
Also for me, Matteo, keep well and keep the faith.
So great to have you here with us today, Amber. You are an amazingly talented Catholic creative, and you're recently tasked with this 5 by 6 feet painting of Our Lady of Perpetual Help, and in her arms she's not only carrying our infant Jesus, but also Steubenville. So could you tell everyone the story behind first getting the canvas and how that relates to the final product?
Yeah. So I was gifted the canvas by my parents when I was in high school. They've always been such a big support of my artistic endeavors, and but this canvas is 5 by 6 feet, and so it's just massive, and it was just very intimidating, and I never knew what I was going to paint on it. And I always kind of sat in the back of my studio, like waiting what painting the Lord wanted me to create on it. And when I was approached about doing this painting for St. Pete's, I knew that this was the perfect canvas for such a great task.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that it was just waiting for that, right project, that right moment, and just the fact that it came from your parents too. I always find that God the Father, He's the creator. So I always find, like, as a Catholic creative, we kind of have that beautiful connection with Him as a co-creator of beauty and all that. So yeah, it's an amazing story. So you mentioned in your Instagram how you felt like you were guided by the Holy Spirit with every brushstroke. So what was it like to create this so intimately with the Lord?
Yeah, I mean, as a lot of artists can attest, there are just some paintings that can be like an uphill battle and like be a real struggle to convey what you're wanting to convey on the canvas. It's just not working. It's not coming together. But with this painting, like from the beginning, I like had a clear vision of what I wanted, and like each step of the way, I just felt like it went so smoothly, and there was so much peace throughout the entire the entire process that I just knew that the Lord was with me and guiding me through it. And it's cool to be able to pray and intercede for those who are going to look on the painting, like as I'm painting it. And I was actually running out of blue paint when I was painting this. Like I didn't have enough blue, and I was like, what am I going to do? Because all of the stores are closed. Like maybe I could order paint online, but that won't come for a month or so. And so I was just praying that the Lord would multiply this paint, like He did the loaves and the fishes, that I'd be able to have enough to paint Mary's mantle. And sure enough, I did. And so that was a really cool prayer that was answered through this process. So
I really love that you prayed over people who could potentially happen upon it. That's such a beautiful testament, I think, to your faith and your trust in the Lord, and just that, even that funny little detail of the blue paint. It's such I think, a way that Mama Mary is also kind of showing up in this process, in this creative process. And as you said, actually, that kind of reminded me of the wedding at Cana, how she kind of nudged Jesus into turning the water into wine. So in this kind of funny little way, she was able to help you maximize that blue paint. So that's wonderful. So what do you think God placed in your heart to really reflect on during this whole process?
yeah, I just kept thinking about those who are sick. And when I'm sick, like I always just want my mom. Like I don't, I'm a grown woman, and like still the first thought when I'm sick is like, oh, I just want my mom. And so there's so many people that are sick right now, and because of social distancing, like they can't be with their mom or their loved one or the caregiver. And like I just really felt like that was like an intention of mine, is to pray for those who couldn't be with the ones that they love during this time, especially the sick, knowing that Mama Mary is there and like is interceding and present with them in a very special way, and that like you're in the folds of her mantle, like that she's got you.
Oh my gosh, I almost want to cry right now just like hearing that, because I will say that, like, a really good friend of mine, her mom, thankfully she's fully recovered, but her mom was hit by the coronavirus, and their family actually have a devotion to Our Lady of Perpetual Help. So just like, I can really sense that God and Mama Mary are really connecting us all during this time, and just even that little common thread that we have with Our Lady of Perpetual Help. It's so, yeah. So yeah, your story encourages so much hope for everyone, but I think especially artists and creatives who are yearning to create something during this time. So do you have any advice for them that you'd just coming from this experience right now?
Yeah, I mean, my advice would be to just go for it. I think when really beautiful thing about this painting was that it was really kind of a collaboration, because a friend of mine, this like having a painting of Our Lady of Perpetual Help, that protecting Steubenville was like his idea, and he asked me if I'd be willing to like paint this. And so being able to collaborate with people, and like being an artist, we have a unique privilege of being able to like incarnationalize other people's visions and being able to work with others. So I guess my challenge would be to like reach out to people in your community and be able to be co-creators together, whether you're learning to paint or bake or garden, whatever you're choosing to do during this time of quarantine, like trying to build community even though we have to social distance. Or
Yeah, that's actually a wonderful advice. I think yeah, like in some art forms tend to be more like individual, but I love that especially now, like we can really be creative even in how we collaborate with people and express ourselves, and choose to magnify God's beauty in this time. And I think your testimony is proof that even in the messiness of this time, God's beauty, God's glory, and truth is still here. So thank you so much for sharing your talents with the rest of the world, and God bless.
Yeah, bless you too. Thank you for having me.
Hi there, Father Robert. Welcome to Hope from Home with Salt and Light.
Jermaine, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
How is everything going back in Rome? We've made great headway through the pandemic, and you guys are sort of looking like you're on the other side. What's life like looking like there now?
Well, we are starting to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, but people are being cautiously optimistic. We started a program last week with the government's permission to start bringing some, on a very limited basis, some of our employees back into the Curia. We maintain social distancing, some extreme protocols for sterilization. But next week, that expands. So it's not just going to be the larger organizations like ours that have the room to actually do distancing properly, but they're going to start opening some restaurants. Specifically, they're going to be opening the restaurants where you can get a meal and then leave, because they don't want people congregating in a particular place. And also some places like my favorite bar downstairs, a coffee place, where I can get a decent cup of coffee finally, once in 2 months, and maybe a nice cornetto. So a few things are going to be coming back that we see as luxuries right now, and I think the big thing to watch for will be how people take care of one another, because we are going to have to keep social distancing. We're going to have to be ready to clamp down into the quarantine once again if infection rates start to rise. So all of these things are on the horizon. We're hopeful, but at the same time, we don't want to go crazy.
Totally makes sense. With social distancing and frankly, I guess when you're in the heart of it, there's a lot of social isolation. What role did digital communication play in keeping people together and in helping strengthen the Catholic community?
That is a great question. Here in the Vatican, it's, even though we've had technology for a long time, we've used communications technology, and there have been people like me, Jesuits like me, and others like me who have been proponents of using modern technologies for communications. It's been a hard sell, because you've got centuries of ingrained practices where if you want to do a visitation, you have to go out there. If you want to do a presentation, you have to go out there. If you want to have a meeting, it has to be face-to-face. And it's strange, but the pandemic has really enabled us to push forward past that inertia, the resistance to using digital technologies. They have no other choice. And so as a result, the last 2 months I have been busier here than I have been the last 2 years, because suddenly everybody wants studio time. I've actually built an extra studio. So now we have 3 studios to be able to accommodate all the requests for video conferences or video messages. It's one of these things where people are starting to realize, wow, wait a minute, I can have quality face-to-face time and it doesn't feel like a video game, or it doesn't feel like it's disconnected. So on that side, the pandemic's actually been something that's been pushing technology forward.
You talked about people building beautiful things, like in the Minecraft world. When you apply that to the spiritual realm, what can people do to really strengthen their faith right now?
Well, we've been doing some online spiritual direction. Oddly enough, it's been something that's been requested again and again and again. So some people just need someone to talk to. They need someone who they will listen. And one of the things that we've seen over and over, the common themes in these directions, have been people who, for maybe the first time in their life, experienced an actual Easter. It wasn't filled with noise. It wasn't filled with things to do. It was, you're by yourself. It was you and prayer. It's you and God. It's you and your thoughts. People have been forced to interact with family members who, let's be honest, some relationships are based on distance. It's, yes, that's my family, but I go someplace every day. When that went away, and when people had to sit and actually hammer through conflicts and hammer through difficulties and actually have real conversations because you couldn't go away, it was difficult, it was trying, and it caused a lot of conflict and a lot of hardship, and I don't want to minimize that. But at the same time, forcing people to build on those difficult relationships, on those difficult conversations, forcing people to actually confront some of the things that were getting in the way. I think for those who have actually taken the opportunity to do it, it's something wondrous on the other side. Just like me with my video games, if you put the work into it, and if you actually take the time to do it right and see it step by step by step, what you have at the end isn't just a collection of experiences, it's something so much more. And I think that's something that we've seen from a lot of our directees online.
Yeah, absolutely. I've spoken with a lot of people and read a lot of different articles that people would really say that this past Lent was a Lent like no other. Instead of giving up chocolate, giving up ice cream, they really had to engage with that. And then the idea of Easter, that celebration, and really coming together has also really been shown during this time. So I guess there's some silver lining with this global pandemic. What would be your hope for everybody right now?
My hope would be that there's this phrase that we've been using a lot around the Korea, and that is to question normal, because we're starting to get into that phase where we're moving back to maybe normality. And yes, we know that there's probably going to be another round of COVID. We understand this. We understand how pandemics work. We understand how viruses work. Until we get some sort of immunization for this, it's still going to be a threat. But people are starting to say, okay, we see the other side. We've done the whole flattening the curve. We've done the whole social distancing thing. We think we understand how this transmits. And they're starting to think maybe it's time to go back into our sense of normality. And we're asking them, do you know what that is? The reason why this hit so many communities so hard was because their normal, if they really think about it, was not good. The fact that you had so many communities who were so vulnerable, who were literally one paycheck away from homelessness and starvation. Where you had, not just in the United States, but around the world, so many different communities of people for whom this wasn't just getting locked in the house. This was questioning, how am I going to survive for the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it might be. And if we use that, if we learn from that, then we can question what normal is. We can say, hey, does that have to be normal? And this is not even a question of if this happens again. It's, is this the way we want to live our lives? Is this what we value? Is this where we want to put our time, our talent, and our treasure? If we believe in the Gospels, if we really do believe in the Gospels, then why have we built something that is so easily taken down by a social and economic disaster? And again, that's one of those things, it's difficult because I know there's never a really good time to ask that question because there's always going to be someone who's still suffering the effects of the pandemic. But I think it needs to be back in the back of our minds. I think this needs to be something that's in the homily of every priest as we start to come back. It needs to be in the letter of bishops. It's already, you can see it already from the communications we're getting out of the Vatican with Pope Francis of, could this be the thing that pushes us to build something better? And I think, if anyone can take anything that is of hope from the pandemic, I hope that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to question what we deem as normal takes discernment for sure. And I guess part of the gift of this is we have been gifted with a time of discernment. This isn't to take away, like you've mentioned, people who are suffering, people who are going through a lot of stuff. But yeah, taking the time for discernment. I agree. That's wonderful. And I hope all of our viewers really take that to heart and question their normal and build the right normal that fits them. So
Correct.
Father Robert, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And I, like everybody else, will keep an eye out for your tweets and videos, and just all the best to you back in Rome.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
And that's all for today. I love hearing news from around the world. I can't imagine being in Ireland for St. Patrick's Day and having no parade. And how about that painting of Our Lady of Perpetual Help in Steubenville? It's so beautiful. And also, it's true that the church is being forced to use technology in a way that it hasn't before. I think that's a good thing. What do you think? Share your thoughts with us by following Salt and Light Media on all of our social media platforms and commenting with the hashtag #HopeFromHome. If you miss any part of the episode and you'd like to watch it again, visit our website, saltandlighttv.org/HopeFromHome. We hope that these stories inspire you to stay positive and remind you that we're all still connected through hope.